Marissa Fahrig, Matt Collins, welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank you.
So we are here live from the International Builders Show at the Higharc booth, and we're going to be talking about multiple things. We're talking about home building. We're going to be talking about the search for the single source of truth, which is a phrase that I love. We're going to talk about change management, whether it's ERP systems or anything else, and leadership. So I appreciate you guys making time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Bradley.
So Marissa, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
You got your undergrad where?
Missouri Southern State.
Missouri Southern State mascot?
Oh, it's a lion.
A lion.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay.
It was my hometown, college. I was a little fearful of leaving the nest, so that was the choice that I made. And then I went to grad school at Missouri State.
Got it. You earned your MBA.
Yeah.
You end up working as the executive director, the local HBA.
Yes, sir.
What drew you into that, and then maybe how'd you double down on that to kind of really go all in on home building?
Yeah, so in college, I helped start a nonprofit with some friends of mine, and continued kind of on that nonprofit path in my early career, and moved to Northwest Arkansas just because of the amazing opportunities. I found the HBA, and it's sort of nonprofit adjacent. I mean, we have a foundation, we give back, we host events, kind of like a merger of all the things I already like to do. And then I realized through getting that job how interested I was in home building and how much I loved the people who were also interested in home building. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's great. So Matt, your background, if you could create an executive who runs his own consulting company, who works with folks all over the country, and say, what would the ideal background be? I would say, well, I don't know, military background, you're in the U.S. Army, maybe some experience on the dealer side, you worked at 84, working in purchasing, close to the money, understanding that process for a home builder, done that. Then became VP of a home building executive. Then you started working for one of the nation's best, the Shin Group, nation's best consulting firms. Then go back to really lead a home builder in Gulfport, Mississippi. And now you're on your own with the Mainspring Group. I'm like, this is it. I just read through this. I'm like, all right, this should be the easiest interview ever because of all your experience. But given that extensive background and the different aspects of the business you worked in, what do you draw upon as you think about those experiences now most? As we kind of enter 2023,
Sure.
What do you find yourself talking to your clients most about as kind of addressing their pains or taking advantage of opportunities?
Yeah, what we see a lot with our clients is it's a daily firefight, and we really focus on the operations teams within home building companies, from that contract to post-closing through warranty, but that phase, and we see those folks just worn thin. I mean, some of my background was in those in those roles for quite a while, and can really appreciate what they go through on a day-to-day. So we really focus on a balance for them in their lives, give them the tools and resources to improve their own work-life balance, that you don't need to work that insane hours to be successful. We can give you solutions to do it. We really focus on trying to take, we know that they are in that daily firefight. There's hardly any resources that the typical builder can allocate to improving systems and processes, and kind of make it to scale. Proactive work within the operations team day in and day out just isn't there. So we come and try to do a lot of that heavy lifting for them, help them. We try to do that kind of like a fast forward button for those guys, so we can help them set up the system, set up so they can scale. And that's a lot of our clients are small builders, the mid-sized builders that are trying to go to the next level, but they don't have the ability to really invest their own team's time to create those systems. So
Marissa, I want to ask you this question.
Yeah.
As we were talking about how kind of we all got connected through Higharc.
Yes.
I flash back to essentially, my first decade in home building, when the question of who had the most up-to-date, accurate prints. And for the better part of a decade, it was a guy named Chuck. And he was the framer, he kind of ran the site, and he had this big blue van that was generally dirty, and amongst Copenhagen tins and McDonald's wrappers smashed in the front of the dashboard was the one set of prints.
Yes.
The prints.
Correct.
Those were the red line prints. And if someone says, how do you actually build this thing? Because I don't trust these. And you're like, no. Do not trust those.
Yes.
You can only trust Chuck's prints. How has that evolved over the years? And maybe where does kind of Higharc come into play based on your experience using them, recently?
Yeah, so we definitely don't want our single source of truth to be Chuck's plans that are in his van. I think you're not always going to alleviate that happening, right? People in the construction industry, they love to print things, they love paper and having it in their hands.
Yes.
And I get that, I totally understand that. But I think reducing it as much as possible and making technology accessible to not just our field staff but our trades is super important and a huge focus for us. This year we're totally reimagining all of our software, and our philosophy behind how we were going to build it is field first. And I think you can build systems from a lot of different perspectives, from a purchasing perspective, from an accounting perspective, and oftentimes I think that field perspective gets second place or third place to that.
Sure.
But they're in the field, they don't have 2 monitors, they can't make Excel spreadsheets, they can't make workarounds.
Yeah.
So why would we build a system that isn't perfect for them? We're okay if our system isn't perfect for purchasing or perfect for accounting, but it has to be perfect for our field staff. So
Got it.
Yeah.
So as you hear that, Matt, walk me through exactly kind of the experience side, because I visited the website. In the past, we had Ed Kubiak and Connor Saddam on the show, kind of talking about Higharc, kind of the changes they are making. At the end of the day, though, I want to know about the practitioners.
Yeah.
How is this thing being used, and plan integrity and trust to know what we're building and where we're building, and even if we go to a different municipality or we have a different code, how has that all become really cohesive? How does that all tie in your role when you are working with your clients from kind of the consulting perspective?
That story of Chuck's van, that's same story can be told a million times in a million different dirty vehicles. And it's in that case, you knew the single source of truth. Where was the most integrity? It was in there. Others didn't share that same perspective, and so there was a lot of people grabbing information from different places and saying this is what I'm going to trust. So a lot of it is even from the get-go with the team, that for the entire team, direct home builders, the trades, the suppliers, to all know that they can rely on whatever that truth is. Because if they don't, then it doesn't matter if it's a single source of truth, if multiple people trust varying things. And
do you mind if I quick interrupt you? I don't want to bury the lead here. This idea of the single source of truth. Mm-hmm. What do we mean by that? Because I think when I hear it, I'm like, I know what it means to me.
Yeah.
And it resonates deeply. So I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Answer that and we'll get back right back to you.
So when we started looking at Higharc and they were talking to us in the early days, they did pitch us on this idea of the single source of truth.
Okay.
And we were like, okay, what does that mean exactly? And I don't know if we fully understood what it meant until we started implementing it. But what it means is, as soon as if we draw a square in Higharc, and Higharc's automatically going to say, okay, this square is a house. It knows how Buffington builds its walls. It knows how Buffington does the eaves, the placement of windows. It's going to automatically kind of make those decisions for you, right?
Okay.
So when you're drawing those things and getting your house plans in there, at the same exact time, you're creating your sales experience and your sales options, so they're fully connected to the plans. And then also, at the exact same time, you're able to print that out in plan form to have those lot-specific construction documents. Right. So everything is hand in hand, instead of having what we had, which was a third-party drafter drafting our plans, outsourcing it. Takes a long time, takes a lot of money to make those changes.
Yep.
That's not connected to our sales experience. There's a lot of room for human error there. And then send it off again after the sales experience to get the lot specific. So having all of that in-house and kind of taking like our power back and being able to do it ourselves is huge.
Wow. No, I'm glad I asked, because again, that means different things to different people, but I wasn't actually thinking all the way through to that single source of truth to the homeowner as well, right? The customer. So it's bringing in the trades.
Yeah.
Like, this is where we all go and we all trust it. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's producing those key building measures also. So like it's related to the takeoffs, like everything. When you change a wall or when you move a window, it's connected to every single piece of your buyer experience and your sales experience.
Yep. Got it. All right. Matt, do you remember where you were when I cut you off and Marissa took over and we dove into the definition of the single source of truth? Maybe, I'm not sure I do, but pick it up right from there.
Maybe not precisely, but I think I can add some more color to that.
Great, please do.
when a builder has a customer choose a house, one of the things they often end up doing, and it was out of necessity, they get that buyer to sign the marketing piece, the marketing collateral.
Yes.
Then there's another set of plans that's created. So that is completely unattached to the construction drawing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then the construction drawing comes out, and that regularly is not exactly the same as that marketing. I was working with a client who felt the best solution was to not allow their customers to get the construction drawings. Because, hey, why deal with that? If this says 10 foot 1 and it's 10 foot 8, can't really tell by in the room, but if it's on the plan. So the solutions are, hey, here's this drawing. We're not going to build it. We're not actually going to build that at all. We're going to build this completely separate piece of information.
Yeah.
Then that goes out to the field, and then it ends up in Chuck's van. That's another version. So you have all these disconnected, and that's just the plan. So Marissa mentioned the flow of information for purchasing. What is
right.
typically the source of truth for the purchasing system for a builder? It's the quantities in their purchasing software. Completely disconnected from the plan itself, unless the builder goes through some pretty difficult steps, arduous steps. Scan it in, you get a PDF, you put a system over top. And there are good solutions out there to solve that in the near term, but there's nothing connecting it. What connects it is people, translators, and there's human error throughout that. So that idea of single source of truth. It's almost like you get it, and then when you start to thinking about it even more deeply, the implications of that,
right,
all the way to that house being the single source of truth for that homeowner eventually, them having access to the same information. When does my water heater, filament need changed, or a filter in the HVAC? Could be part of that, so it's almost like asking, why not? Why can't we?
Yes.
And let's work towards that.
Well, I think many of us in construction, whether we've been in there for a week and you start asking some simple questions, or 3 decades, is why is this so hard?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To say, here on a piece of paper we drew it,
Yeah.
and can we all agree we're going to build this thing? And then, right, anyway, I could go on a rant there.
Yes.
Marissa, I want to ask about takeoffs.
Yes.
If we look at the implications of how we bid,
Yeah.
how we do our own takeoffs,
Yeah.
someone's over here in the corner. I just printed out 2x3 sets of plans. That cost me $50 because I like to spread out. I like the little angled desk. I like it all, right? And then I got other people using, there's multiple different versions of automated software that I can click a point and kind of figure all that out. If you think about in aggregate how much time and waste on every job, or you have multiple subcontractors bidding out the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Tell me how that is either currently simplified or can be simplified in the future at Buffington.
Yeah, so for us, a lot of our trades we've had for many years. They're old school pen and paper takeoff people.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of options. We're an option heavy production builder.
Yep.
And it can get very confusing for our trades to interpret that information, to actually what's changing, how does this move, we ask a lot out of them when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And there's has to be a degree of guesswork in that also. And so I think with what Higharc is developing, that guesswork really gets reduced. We sat down with one of our roofers. He's been our roofer since the beginning.
Is this Jimmy?
This is Jimmy.
Talk to me about Jimmy.
Jimmy, and old school takeoff guy, Arkansas to the max, a great person. And we were like, take a look at this. We knew he would give us his, honest feedback. And he was blown away. And so basically it's similar to the sales experience. And if you've seen Higharc before, you can kind of click and add that third car garage and see it 3D and how that's going to look. Great for the buyer, but also great for the trade. So they have a similar experience, but next to that on the side is the key building measures, and they change as they change those options. Okay. So now Jimmy can just see when they do the 5-foot bump out, it adds this much. When they do the third car, it adds this much roof, and can give us really accurate takeoff information instead of being I'm not sure what all their options are, or takes all that guesswork out of it.
Yeah. Matt, maybe I'll ask you for the audience that either didn't see it or can't see it because it's audio only. Can you describe what's on the backside of that 15-foot wall there? Because when I saw that, I instantly thought that was my life. That
Yes.
is why these things are so hard. Maybe can you explain for the audience in a simple way what that is?
Yeah, so you get, if you're a builder, you try to keep the number of plans that you offer to a minimum, but market changes and they keep evolving, and you get the 3 and then the 4, then the 4A, so it goes. So if you just look at one plan and you take and say, all right, let's offer it in 3 elevations, pretty simple.
Yep.
Take the 3 options or elevations. And then on top of that, you offer a handful of structural options. When the exponential impact on all of the variations of that house are insane. And so on the back side of that, which the audience can't see, but it looks like initially you don't know if you're looking at the solar system.
That's what I saw. And then the minute I walked up, it was just like this swirling little bits of points, but it was, and especially I didn't see how many options they had plugged in.
It's only 18.
It's only 18 options?
And it equates to like 70 million
79
variations.
million.
70 million variations of a home that you could build.
And we have a lot more than 18 options. We're like, we have to do this calculation.
That's
one plan.
So the idea of having, when Marissa said, the idea of having these 17 options chosen on this elevation, on this plan, and actually knowing what the real quantities are to be able to build that, you could have a lot of people do that for you, and they probably could. But is it instant? It takes time, and then you make one change to one thing out in the field, or something changes. It's almost, it's such a big number that it's like we're not even gonna truly try to have all of that information. So we're going to do a lot of lump summing. We're going to do a lot of guessing.
So much compromise comes with that, I feel like.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm always blown away helping builders bid and sitting in that seat for a lot of years. We'll negotiate to the fractional dollars, on lineal foot of I-joist or whatever.
Yes.
And best negotiators driving that price down. But the quantities... The quantity isn't even agreed to. You negotiated, 0.3 cents out of that lineal foot, which is great. Good job, and great job supplier for coming alongside the builder in that. But the variation in length is 130 feet on that house. Like what are we even focused on?
And how many people resonate with like Excel sheets and seeing those things on paper? Not only are you managing huge amounts of data, but you're managing it in a really kind of dry way. So to be able to visualize it and really understand and have a meaningful conversation about it, I feel it gets you so much further down the road.
Well, and when I spent some time in purchasing, so I had been in the field for 8 years during the go-go days of the early 2000s, built 1,000 homes in the field over 8 years, obviously, with a bunch of other really talented people. I was just hanging around annoying them. And then I go into purchasing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because there wasn't a whole lot of transparency in the contracts and quantities, and we were too busy trying to build whatever showed up, right? Now all of a sudden, I found myself in purchasing, faced with that one home, 3 elevations, 64 options, 100 million permutations, and saying, you know what I don't like anymore? I don't like what I'm doing here. And Marissa, I want to transition this to you, because I think one of your goals for this year you wrote down at Buffington was to really look at costs. That was secondary, but really build more high quality homes, take care of the customers with fewer people, but happier people.
Yes.
So pulling, I think, back out from kind of the weeds of what we've been talking about on the tactical stuff, tell me a little bit of how you guys plan to do that, because I think for this whole industry, you could argue the whole globe, coming out what we've been through the last couple of years, I think we have a lot of people that are looking around saying, am I enjoying what I do here? And so maybe just share a little bit of how you guys plan to do this in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, we have a lot of growth ahead of us as a company, and one of our main goals this year, we focus on people, process, and purpose, but under process is build more homes with less stress, like bottom line. There's a lot of goals that go under that, but that's our primary focus when it comes to process. And so I think really heavily diving into that this year with our software and leveraging that as much as possible. We can't continue to grow our team the way on pace with our business. That's just not sustainable. And so, like I was saying earlier, we've kind of, with the software that we've chosen, taken our power back in a lot of ways, and made it easier for ourselves to manage that data. And that's the biggest piece, definitely, with purchasing specifically. So
okay,
yeah,
got it. Maybe on this a little bit, Matt, I'd like you to kind of speak just generally about change management. And I wrote every other week we read a little newsletter, tried to keep it under 1,000 words, and I wrote an article on kind of Southwest and what I called the ass-kicking line, which is something my dad used to always tell me I was in doing stupid things when I was younger. And the point was Southwest knew they had a software system for scheduling crews that really didn't perform well in extreme circumstances. And over the holidays, they had to cancel 17,000 flights and impacted a whole bunch of people, including our family, and kind of while I was writing about it. It's not uncommon. I'm sure you see this often. And what Marissa was talking about is we realize we have exceeded the capacity or capability of our current systems. Yeah. We need to change. Yeah. ERP, so whatever you're talking about. Bringing in Higharc. Finding that solution and figuring out how we're going to pay for it and believing in it as an executive team is one thing. Mm-hmm. Second thing is going to everybody from, Sandra, who works as a project manager, to Jimmy the roofer, to say, got good news for you. Yeah. Everything you knew before, all those skills are going away. Something new. Whatever made us successful in the past, we're not going to do it anymore in here. And you have this, tumultuous experience you got to go through, but it's necessary to grow. Long-winded wind up here to my question. When you think about change management and how to get people to change when they don't want to change, where do you start?
If you go to the operators, the Jimmys, and say, hey, great news, we're going to switch your entire system that you've known for years.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But it's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be great.
Trust me.
Trust me. It's going to take 2 months. It's going to be difficult, a couple months, and then if they've been around at all, they're like, yeah, okay. Yeah. And they go find a job at a place that's using the system that they've understood. And you run that risk for sure. So I think Marissa alluded to what Higharc was doing. I think it's a good model. They go out and they talk and they understand. If people think that everything is fine here, change creates stress. Stress comes from unknown and not having control. So if you don't know what you're switching into and you don't understand it, it's terrifying. Even if it's the right solution, even if it will actually do what you say, which is a whole other topic, but even if it does, just simply getting there. And so the change starts with, instead of saying in the old days of, hey, this is what we're switching to, guys, just figure it out, it's starting more definitely organic and grassroots, which is why, as a consulting firm, we really focus on those operators to understand what is going on. And then the solutions that we suggest and what we help our clients land on is from that team up, the recommendation. What the ROI's got to be there. It's got to actually make sense. It's got to pencil out. But like you said, that's kind of secondary. First, is it going to actually stick? And when we're working with clients to determine that, we'll understand. I was using an example last night of a deck installer that, man, you put brown deck on the gray deck. It's supposed to be gray. It was, you put brown. Like, how'd you screw that up? And, he said, this is a true story. He said, Matt, do you know how many pieces of paper I have to read through to know what color of deck I need? I got to read through this entire packet. And buried on page 4 is that one. And then if you change it, and then in this case changed it back, somebody put in there, no, not brown, it was gray, or vice versa. He didn't see it the third time, so going there and understanding that, like, this is actually real problems. Somebody's eating $1,800 of decking. And it probably is going to end up being a trade because the information was there, and as a builder, we can force that on them. It's not the right answer. So understanding those sort of challenges that they face on a day-in-and-day-out basis. So the trades, the operators, purchasing, estimating, field managers, how do they do schedule modifications? How do they approve checklists, quality? Understanding that first, and then really working with them so that they understand, we can't actually stay here. If the solution to growth is just replicating, that's not a solution. There's no value that's actually generated. So we have to actually scale. And is this scalable or not? If that deck guy now has to read 4 documents for every deck and he's going to do twice the amount of decks, is that real? No, it's not real. Let's come up with a better solution.
Well, you bring up a great point. And I would say, yes, the trade is going to eat that $1,800 in the short term.
Oh, yeah,
in the
that's
long
exactly
term,
right.
if
They'll
you
get it
don't
out of
think
you.
there's if there's some mental accounting going on, and he might say, I'm going to lay low here. But by June of 2024, I'm going to be made whole
Yes.
with interest.
Yeah, then some more.
Definitely.
They figure out a way to turn that back for sure. Maybe just expand on that. Maybe just
Yeah.
tell me about Buffington, maybe internally. I
Sure.
always think about kind of what's our internal marketing with any change initiative. How are we repeating the key messages that are going to resonate, now in the future to get people saying, okay, you know what, I'm in the boat. My oars might be out of the water, but I promise you, Marissa, I'm not going to be rowing the wrong way.
Sure.
Because I'm trying to go back to the shore that you want us to leave from. How are you guys planning that? Because it sounds like you've alluded to a couple different things. Sounds like you're taking a look at a couple different systems internally
Yes.
at the same time.
We ripped the Band-Aid off and we just said,
Okay.
we're going to change everything,
All right.
which is kind of shocking to our team, right? But luckily we have a great company and a great culture. So our people are on board, but we realize that change is hard and difficult. And I think for us, one thing we did right off the bat was we took some time to create a video that we just put together. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but on YouTube, they'll do these explanation videos that are on dry erase boards.
Yes, sure.
And they'll kind of draw
A little
it out.
fake little hand moves around?
Yes.
Sure.
So I did that for our team, and I drew out kind of the flow of all of the new systems together.
Sorry, just curious.
Yes.
You literally did it with your hand, or you used a service that did it and you
No,
had them?
I did it.
You did it?
Yes. So our marketing department helped
Okay.
me kind of draw this out. This is the fastest way I knew how to do it. And so we rolled it out to our
that.
owners, and we said, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to create in like a visual, engaged way, so they could see it all the way through. And they were like, okay, we're on board. What do you need from us? And we were like, well, that's all we needed. And so then we rolled that out to our team and just said, what questions do you have? This is the goal. And so I think giving people a really good sense of where they're going is so important in that process, because you can say a lot of things and give a lot of terms, but that doesn't mean a lot to people. I can say Higharc, but it's like, well, what does that mean exactly, right?
Yeah.
So showing them visually, I think, has really been important for us, and I've kind of tried to tailor my message to each department. Accounting takes change differently than purchasing takes change, than the field takes change. And so I've tried to make sure that I build trust with that department, that I have kind of my champions in that department who are on the same page with me, who are ready to kind of help lead that team through it. And then providing those visuals so everybody kind of knows where we're going. And just, something as simple as vocabulary of like, this is Higharc, this is the sales portal, this is the new CRM, and just educating them in that. Then the next time you train them, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah.
So just little pieces at a time.
I think there's a big insight in there that you kind of alluded to, which is you almost have a separate process improvement plan for each department.
Yes.
These are
You
different
have
people,
to.
they work together differently, which, right, I say that, you're like, that's obvious. Yet, I can think of a couple clients right now, and they're like, here's the plan. I'm like, how does this work from finance to purchasing to the operations and the executive team? They're like, yeah, we're bowling them up into one thing. And you're like, well,
Yeah.
some of them, that adoption or commitment to get behind it, or
Yes.
commitment to give it the Heisman, is going to come out faster if you
Yeah.
don't kind of change that. So I think that's really smart.
Oh, it's so funny. In my accounting meetings, it's very calm. They want to know what their homework is. It's just like a very gentle meeting, right? But then I go to purchasing and there's curse words and we're yelling at each other, and like in a healthy way, but like that's just what it is. So
Yes. That's good. Okay. Watching the time, I know we've got a lot of stuff going on. I got a couple of questions to ask. I would be remiss. A lot of our listeners are going to be coming from kind of the dealer community as well as the distribution side. And I think I will often share just random details about my experience working for a builder and what we expect and the little things that made it easy or the little things that made it harder for us to do our jobs. So Matt, let me ask you if you have any recommendations, top thing or two. And again, knowing you started with 84, been through, and they have fantastic management training program. Any recommendations you'd have for those folks that are listening to say, hey, this is something that maybe it's subtle, that a lot of people do, but people need to do it more and be more aware of it, or a lot more people on the supply distribution side should be doing this to make it easier for builders to build?
It's an example that was a good, illustrates this well. One of the earlier builders that I worked with, we eventually switched from dimensional framing to I-joists.
Okay.
And we were pitched that several times, but it never penciled out. And we didn't believe that at that time that the buyers were going to value the increase in cost, increase in price. So hey, it was a lot of thanks, great opportunity, but just doesn't make sense. One particular, and everyone approached it the same way. What's your lineal footage? And let's get down that, to the 1.004, per foot. Another company came to us and said, what is the most important thing for you, purchasing team? Everyone wants this. It's great. Well, what's the issue? And it's really that, at the end of the day, the dollar amount we can't afford. And they said, okay, we're obviously not going to win on lineal foot price comparison dimensional. Let's try something else. And they tried some other things. They said, if we can redesign your layouts in a way that reduces the overall requirements, and that brings the cost down, would that count? Heck yeah, anything's on the table, man, and let's try it. And they did. They were successful. They were able to bring their product into the largest regional builder, and that put them into position to then go to those competitors and also sell, and it was a huge win. So that's an example, that's an illustration to the answer. It's, don't think it's just lowballing, and don't think it's just the price. Yeah. There's a pain that builder is experiencing. It's likely in volatility, supply challenges, changing. When I have to call a buyer and say, hey, I need to change your hardwood, they said, you didn't know about this when you called me about the shingles 2 weeks ago, and then there's the tile's gone. So come up with solutions that are actually working solutions that are actually addressing those real life problems that the builder and those operators face, and there will be opportunity there. It's not don't worry about getting the takeoffs and all that stuff. There's other solutions, and it's just for knowing what that pain is. So affordability crisis is real, availability of product is real, supply chain constraints is real, scheduling downtime is incredible on a job site. Yep. Those are real pain points.
Well, I think this is all construction, but this assumption that buyers are solely focused on price, and this is the lowest common denominator. So let's look at apples and see how much it costs and how much we'd have to do, when oftentimes the answer is, number one, I'll often say is, there's a reason sales requires persistence. Because sometimes it's the right solution at the wrong time. It's not a priority, people didn't get it, you didn't explain it well enough. The other part is just shutting off the phone, sitting in a dark room, and thinking. Be creative. And I will ask executives, we do some executive coaching, I'll ask them, or our salespeople, I'll say, how often do you shut off the phone and just think about the people that are most important on your team and your most important customers, about the most important things to them that impact their profitability? I will often get laughter. Mm-hmm. Too busy, man.
There's no time.
I can't. Yeah. Shut off my phone. Are you crazy? You know what happened? Oh, I get it. We're too busy to think. Okay. So anyway, love that. Marissa, same question.
Yes.
What can suppliers, distributors, what can they do to make your jobs easier?
I think from my perspective that there's a lot of ways we can make suppliers working for us easier. You have to kind of take a step back and decide what is our pain in the ass factor, right? Like, how hard are we to work with? And
the PETA factor.
Yeah. I don't know how else to explain it, but
yes.
I think once you can kind of remove yourself from it a little bit and see it from their perspective, that really helps you when you're designing a system. I think we have this vicious cycle of, okay, if our schedules aren't right, and then the trades can't trust it, and then purchasing can't trust it, and then sales loses communication, and then we're back at the front again, right? And so we have to be champions of our system and be champions of our frontline field folks using it, I think, first off, and then we can build that trust with our suppliers. They can trust our system and trust our processes, and it's really up to you. Like, if you're going to be a high pain in the ass factor, I don't know what you termed.
PATA. Pain in the ass.
Then you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so it's on you at the end of the day to decide where you land on the scale.
Yep.
Can I add to that, Bradley?
Yes.
It always amazes me. I feel for those new suppliers and trades that land a account like Buffington or pitch a deal at somewhere I was working, and they get that. We think we negotiated so well. They're excited because it's a big account.
Yep.
But what the people they're bidding against, the trade suppliers that have been in there, they're not aware of that factor.
Yes.
So in a short amount of time, if every time somebody new bids you and their costs are low, and the people that work for you over time, their costs have to keep climbing.
Yeah.
Yep.
It may not be their commodities. It may be that factor.
Yeah.
And to really have that conversation, I had a guy ask, I need an increase, Matt, $600 HVAC, and let's talk this through. He said the pipe's going up. Like, well, I look at the index, that's not going up, so what is going on? He said, honestly, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I'm not making money on your account.
Yeah.
And so I just need it, man. I just need it. So I said, well, how many times do you drive to our job site? 7. How many times should you drive to the job site? 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, do those things not cost more than a $600 increase? Let's assume it's $200 a trip. That's not crazy. That's $800 in cost, but you're asking me for $600 just to pay for our inefficiencies on the front end.
Yeah.
What if I don't give you an increase? What if I actually reduce your price by $600, but I will pay you $200 every time we screw up? And you got to come for trips 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll pay it, and you'll get your $600 plus some. But when we start cutting variances for $200 a pop to go to that job site, all of a sudden attention's being earned.
Yes.
And then we can actually, it's a Hawthorne effect. We can actually fix the real problem. It's not your cost. It's not the PVC index.
Yeah.
Hawthorne effect being shining a light on it,
Yeah.
letting people know we are paying attention to this, we are paying attention to you, and now all of a sudden
Things happen.
Get,
it's magical.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Marissa, I cut you off there.
No, I was just going to say we rely so much on our trades, but they need to be able to rely on us too, to take in that feedback, to make those changes, and to look at ourselves,
Well, and I think many people listening are like, yeah, that's fine, but you don't know what it's like to work with Johnson Homes. If I come back, they're going to call me a martyr, and then they're going to start looking for a replacement. And I'll say, well, if true, depending on your market, there's probably other folks you want to work with them. Like, these aren't good partners. They're not going to help you be profitable, right?
Yeah.
And if you're just doing this for practice or you're doing it for cash flow, it's not a fun way to make a living. You can find something else. But if you can, and that's the kind of approach that I took in purchasing, especially coming to the field, I'll say, hey, why don't we bet on ourselves? You take 8 trips, I'll pay you for those. But I said, you got to invoice me and you got to let me be part of the solution.
Yes.
Otherwise, they're kind of like, let's just kind of lay low and I'll try to just nickel and dime my way into profitability, which isn't fun. And again, you want partners and try to figure out how to collaborate better.
Yeah.
So, all right, final question before I go. Both of you guys are doing some really neat things that I kind of nerding out on is in the preparation here. Marissa, start with you. Tell me a little bit about Mojoy Creative. What's going on there?
It's a little side business I have with my best friend, and she lives in Wisconsin. I live in Arkansas, and so being kind of from that nonprofit DIY background, we were like, how do we see each other and not pay for it, right? So we started a business, and we paint murals in people's houses, or we'll redecorate their living rooms, or we just launched a candle collaboration. We just kind of whatever, so we can spend time together.
That's awesome.
I sometimes ask questions and we go on for 4 hours in this podcast. Candle collaboration. Does that involve wax creation in someone's bathtub? What happens there?
So our art director at Buffington Homes, he has a side business where he makes these amazing candles. So we partnered up with him, and basically it's like a candle for your best friend kind of thing. Okay. You can get a picture of you and your best friend or your spouse or whoever on the candle, and it's all natural, good for you kind of thing.
Where's it made?
We made them. We poured them. Arkansas did it ourselves. Yeah.
You have like molds?
Yeah, he has the whole candle business that he runs. Yeah, on the side.
You need to go have a drink.
It's actually very interesting.
Candle business, I am.
Yeah.
All right, I'm glad I asked. All right, tell me about MOV, Mauve, Men of Valor. How do you, if you do the MOV, is it MOV or move?
We say move, it's kind of an acronym. It means, forward, onward, growth.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But it stands for Men of Valor Ministries. It's what part of my change in opening the Mainspring Group was to focus at a higher level. I have 5 kids, we homeschool, so
good for you.
Focusing on the family and having some bandwidth and space for the family. So in that process, then really getting involved specifically with all my kids, but I noticed a lot of programs to give sons some skills, like you drop them off and go pick them up, the coach does or whatever. So Men of Valor Ministries was from a faith-based perspective to strengthen relationships between fathers and sons, doing projects together. So we're running basketball camp. We have firearms training that we're doing, which was really hard to have and then get underwriting for a liability policy. But we're it's all solved now.
Basketball, no problem.
Basketball
Firearms could be an issue.
So we got jujitsu, backpacking, music, theology, and just focusing on time for dads and sons together to be involved together and to strengthen those relationships.
Awesome.
Super cool.
Where can people find more about that?
Yeah,
if
appreciate
interested
you
in what
asking.
you're doing? Because I think this is, I know there are lots of people in our audience who will often hear or see a model of this being done, and either they're already doing something similar or they're thinking about launching. So I think this is great. By the way, great marketing on this as well.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a nice coaster. That's Go Move, but it's GOMOV.org is our website. Yeah, come check us out and follow us on our. We put blog posts up, and it's a lot of fun. It's just stemmed out of wanting to be a better dad, better husband, better father, and better man of faith. And it's exciting.
I love it. Okay, awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes.
Thanks so
Marissa,
much.
where can people find more about you and Buffington?
They can go to our website on Buffington. They can see what we've recently done with Higharc. We are in the Higharc booth. We have configurable models of our homes on the website right now, so you can have that great sales experience.
Awesome. Matt Collins, Marissa Fahrig.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed talking to you guys. Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Bradley. Yeah.